I still remember that day at the airport like it was yesterday. I was running late for the most important business trip of my life when I saw her, a beautiful young woman sitting on a concrete barrier with a baby in her arms. Little did I know that my impulsive decision to help her would lead me to the most shocking discovery of my life. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Althea Vale, and at 55 years old, I had everything society said I should want: a successful multi-million-dollar company, a beautiful home, and respect in the business world. What I didn't have was the one thing I desperately craved: a family of my own. The night before everything changed started like any other. I pulled into my driveway at 11:40 p.m., exhausted from another grueling day of negotiations and crisis management. My reflection in the rearview mirror showed a woman who looked far older than her years. 30 years of running my father's company had taken its toll. Inside the house, I found my mother, Beatrix, in the kitchen, watching television with a cup of half-finished tea. She turned to me with that familiar look of disappointment I had grown to expect. "Almost midnight again and you're just getting in from work," she said without even looking at me. "When will you stop torturing yourself and finally breathe? Don't you understand that at your age, rest is important?" Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the wine I poured myself, or maybe it was 30 years of resentment finally breaking free. The words came flooding out before I could stop them. "That's enough, Mama. I hear these lectures every single day." She turned to me, genuinely bewildered. "What lectures?" "I'm just worried about you. Do you want to know why things turned out this way?" I took a large gulp of wine, feeling it burn my throat. "It was you and Daddy who made me this way. You separated me from Julian, claiming he wasn't good enough for me." "Julian?" Her face showed surprise. "My God, Althea, that was over 30 years ago. He was a simple student without a dime in his pocket. He loved me." I shouted. "He genuinely loved me, but you and Daddy convinced me that I deserved better, that he wasn't good enough, that he had no ambition. We wanted a better life for you," she began, but I didn't let her finish. "And the next suitor was Daddy's competitor, too ambitious, you said. He'll strip us of everything, take over the company. And then it was wrong age, or need to think about grad school, or career is more important." I sank into the chair opposite her, tears streaming down my face. "And then I had to take over the company when Daddy died, and everything crashed down on me. When was I supposed to meet men when all my time went into keeping the company afloat?" My mother sat silently, her fingers nervously picking at the edge of a napkin. "Don't blame us for everything," she finally said, steel entering her voice. "We always did everything we could for you. Your father built this company from zero. We wanted you to have a future. And where is this better future?" I laughed bitterly. "Where is it, Mama? I am 55 years old with no husband, no children, no grandchildren that you want to babysit so badly. Only a mother who constantly drives me crazy with her moralizing. Don't you dare speak to me like that." She rose sharply from her chair, her face pale and her eyes flashing with anger. "So what? Does being my mother give you the right to control my life? You ruined it, Mama. You are guilty," she shouted back. "You missed your time. No one forced you to slave away for days on end. Other women somehow managed to work and start a family. Other women aren't carrying a multi-million-dollar business on their backs. Other women don't live with parents who think no one is worthy of their precious daughter. We just wanted you not to make a mistake." "A mistake?" I laughed hysterically. "I made a mistake anyway, Mama. I made a mistake when I listened to you. Julian now owns a chain of restaurants in 3 cities. And remember Martin, Dad's competitor? He has 2 grown children, a successful company, and a happy life. And I am alone." A heavy silence filled the kitchen. My mother sank back into her chair as if all her strength had left her. "You are being unfair," she said quietly. "Father and I worked all our lives to give you the very best education, the company, this house." "I didn't want the company," I screamed. "I wanted to love and be loved. I wanted children. I wanted to wake up next to a person who holds me, not next to a stack of documents." "Then why did you agree to lead the company?" She looked at me with a challenge in her eyes. "No one forced you." "How did you not force me?" The tears finally broke through. Daddy lay in the hospital begging me not to let the company fall apart. His life was in this business. And you cried every day, saying that if I didn't take control, we would lose everything, that Daddy's life would turn to dust. How could I refuse? My mother turned away toward the window, her shoulders trembling. "I didn't know you thought that way," she whispered. "Of course you didn't know. You never asked what I wanted. You always knew better." I finished my wine and stood up. "I need to sleep. Important meeting tomorrow." As I headed for the exit, I stopped at the threshold without turning around. "You're right about one thing, Mama. I missed my time, but it happened not only because I decided so. It happened because you and Father didn't let me live my own life." I went upstairs, closed my bedroom door, and leaned against it. I knew this fight, like dozens before it, would change nothing. Tomorrow morning we would speak coldly and stiffly again, pretending nothing had happened. The next morning, I woke with a heavy head and a bitter taste in my mouth. Coming down to the kitchen, I discovered my mother wasn't there. She usually got up early, but today the kitchen was empty. She's probably offended after yesterday, I thought, pouring myself coffee. Guilt gnawed at me, but I had no time to deal with family drama. I ate a hasty breakfast, left a short note for my mother on the table, and drove to work. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was our housekeeper, Marla. "Ms. Vale," her voice sounded alarmed, even frightened. "Mrs. Beatrix is missing." My heart gave an unpleasant lurch. "What do you mean missing?" "I can't find her anywhere. She wasn't in the kitchen this morning. I thought she was still sleeping, but when she still hadn't come out by 10, I went to check. The bed is made, she's not in the room." I searched the whole house, looked in the yard, ran out to the street and called her, but Mrs. Beatrix is nowhere. I stood up sharply from my desk, dropping a folder of documents. "Marla, are you sure you checked everywhere?" "Absolutely. I even looked in the basement and the garage. Her phone is lying on the nightstand in her bedroom. I'll be there soon." I called my assistant Ethan Thornton into my office immediately. "Ethan, I have unforeseen circumstances. My mother is missing. I need to handle the search immediately. Reschedule all meetings." He saw my tense face and understood the seriousness. "Ms. Vale, can I help with anything?" I shook my head. "Not yet. If I need your help, I'll call." On the drive home, I replayed all possible scenarios. Where could she be? Could she really have been so offended by yesterday's words that she decided to leave? I started calling her friends. Elizabeth Barrett knew nothing. Valerie, another friend, was equally surprised by my call. Then it hit me, the cemetery. My mother often went there when she was upset. I turned the car around and headed there. The drive took 20 minutes that felt like an eternity. Anxious thoughts swarmed in my head. What if Mama felt unwell? What if something happened to her? I shouldn't have spoken to her like that yesterday. The cemetery was silent except for the rustle of autumn leaves. I practically ran to my father's grave. Fresh flowers lay on the black marble, but no one was there. I sank onto the bench next to the grave, tears rolling down my cheeks. "Daddy, where could Mama have gone?" I whispered, looking at his photo on the monument. I didn't mean to hurt her. I'm just so tired. But no answer came. I wiped my tears and stood up. I needed to act, not sit and cry. I called hospitals next, shaking at the thought that my mother might have been in an accident. After calling 4 hospitals with no results, I drove to the police station. I want to report a missing person, I told the desk sergeant. When did the person go missing? This morning, or possibly during the night. He looked up at me. Description? Beatrix Vale, 79 years old. Well-groomed black woman, average height about 5'5", gray hair usually worn in a bun, brown eyes, wears reading glasses. What was she wearing? I don't know. I left early. I didn't see her. Does she have memory problems? A tendency to wander? No, I shook my head firmly. No memory problems. She was always of sound mind. Maybe there was a conflict, a reason why she might have left? I fell silent, yesterday's fight flooding back. We had a disagreement last night, but that's no reason to disappear. Leave your contacts. We'll look into it. But usually in such cases, people return on their own. Perhaps your mother just wants to teach you a lesson. Teach me a lesson? I felt anger boiling inside. She is 79, not 17. Nevertheless, it happens. Go home and wait. If she doesn't appear in 24 hours, we'll activate a wider search. I left the precinct feeling devastated and helpless. At home, Marla had turned on all the lights as if bright light could help bring my mother back. Nothing, she asked hopefully. Nothing. I didn't sleep that night. I sat wrapped in a blanket, staring at my phone, hoping it would ring, that my mother would call and say everything was fine. But the phone stayed silent. 3 days passed with no word. The police were working but without much enthusiasm. I hired a private detective named Cyrus Grayson, a former homicide detective who came highly recommended. Ms. Vale, I need facts to understand what might have happened, he said during our first meeting. Could your mother have left under the influence of emotions from your argument? I don't know, I ran a hand over my face. She was offended, that's for sure. But to just pick up and leave, she's 79 with a heart condition. Does she have relatives or friends she could turn to? I called everyone. No one has seen her. What did she take with her? Nothing, I felt a lump rising in my throat. Passport is in place, phone is at home, money too. The housekeeper says she didn't even take her favorite purse. That is strange, he frowned. Usually people planning to leave take documents and money. He promised to start work immediately, but days turned into weeks with no results. My mother seemed to have vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, I had to leave for critical business negotiations. The deal was too important, 200 people and their families depended on the company's success. I left Marla with all emergency contacts and flew out, planning to be gone for 3 months at most. But as I rushed through the airport that day, running late for my flight, I saw her, the young woman with a baby that would change everything. She was sitting on a concrete barrier near the entrance, maybe 30 years old, with a child in her arms. She wore a worn coat clearly not her size, her hair disheveled, but her face was surprisingly beautiful with large, tired eyes. The baby, wrapped in a thin blanket insufficient for the autumn weather, couldn't have been more than a year old. I was going to walk past, I had no time, I needed to catch my flight. But something made me stop. Maybe it was her eyes, or the way she tenderly pressed the child to herself, trying to warm him. Excuse me, I stepped closer. Is everything okay? She flinched. Yes, everything is fine. Forgive the intrusiveness, but do you have a place to stay? She was silent for a moment, then lowered her gaze. Not right now, but we'll manage. I looked at the baby sleeping against his mother's shoulder. A thought flashed through my mind, what if my mother is sitting somewhere like this too, lonely and helpless? What if someone is walking past her just as indifferently? I dug in my purse and pulled out a set of keys. I have a lakehouse upstate, about 40 miles from here. I'm flying away for several months. The house is empty. Do you want to live there? She looked at me with disbelief. What? But why? You don't know me. That doesn't matter. You have a small child. He needs a roof over his head, and I have that roof. Right now no one needs it. The baby stirred and started crying softly. His mother began rocking him, and I saw her hands trembling from cold or fatigue. I'm flying away for negotiations for 3 months. Live at my lake house for now. 3 months? She still hesitated. But why are you doing this? Because, I paused, my mother is missing right now and I don't know where she is or if she's okay. I want to believe that if she's somewhere in need of help, someone will be nearby to help her, like I'm helping you now. She slowly reached out and took the keys, tears filling her eyes. Thank you. I don't even know what to say. My name is Sierra, and this is Liam. Althea, I introduced myself. Listen, I need to run, I'm late for my flight, but I'll call my driver right now. He'll take you there. I dialed Diego, my regular driver. Diego, are you still in the parking lot? Yes, Ms. Vale. Did something happen? A woman with a small child is coming to the terminal entrance. Her name is Sierra. Drive them to the lake house, please, and buy them everything they need, groceries, clothes for the child, baby food, diapers, whatever babies need. Understood. Everything will be done, Ms. Vale. I turned to Sierra. You'll be driven. There's everything necessary at the lake house. You'll figure it out. I don't know how to thank you, she looked at me like I was an angel. You saved our lives. Don't exaggerate, I smiled, though my soul was heavy. Just helped. As I turned to go, she called out, Althea, I hope they find your mom. They will, I nodded, unable to say another word, and hurried into the terminal. At the check-in counter, Ethan was waiting nervously. Ms. Vale, where were you? 3 minutes until check-in closes. Sorry, got held up. I just gave the keys to the lake house to a homeless woman with a child. He stopped dead. You did what? Gave the keys. They'll live there while I'm gone. But, Ethan was clearly trying to find words, aren't you afraid to let strangers into the lake house? What if she steals something or turns it into a drug den? I stopped and looked at him. No, I'm not afraid. The woman isn't guilty that her fate turned out this way. I'm sure she's good. Where does such confidence come from? I just felt that I needed to help. There were no lies in her eyes, Ethan, only exhaustion and fear. And that baby was cold. How could I walk past? Ethan sighed. All right. I hope you're right. On the plane, I settled by the window. As we took off, I pressed my forehead against the cold window. Down below was the city where my mother was, or wasn't. With every day, hope melted away. The negotiations dragged on far longer than expected. What was supposed to be 3 months turned into 6. Every evening I called home for news, and every evening Marla gave me the same answer, nothing. The detective was still working but had hit a dead end. My mother's case was gradually moving to the archives. I learned to live with the pain. I no longer cried every night or flinched at every phone ring. I simply accepted it as a given. My mother had disappeared, and most likely I would never see her again. Finally, after 6 grueling months, the deal was closed. The contracts were signed. The company received investments that would allow us to expand internationally. It was a victory, but I felt no joy. As Ethan and I walked through the airport terminal with our suitcases, he was enthusiastic. "Ms. Vale, you were amazing. There were moments I thought they would refuse, but you convinced them." "That's your merit too, Ethan," I smiled wearily. "Without your calculations, we wouldn't have convinced them." "Are you going home now or to the lakehouse?" he asked. I stopped. The lakehouse. I completely forgot I have guests living there. I smiled. "I wonder how they are." Diego mentioned a couple of times that everything was fine. "I'll go to the lake first. I want to make sure everything's okay." We said goodbye at the exit. I called Diego, and 20 minutes later we were on the highway heading to the lakehouse. "How is Sierra?" I asked. "How is the baby?" "Oh, everything is excellent." Diego perked up. "Sierra is such a wonderful woman, hardworking, neat. The house is always in order, and she found a job at the local store. Liam is growing by leaps and bounds. Already started walking." "Already walking?" I was surprised. "How old was he when I left?" 10, 11 months. Now he's a year and 5 months. Such a sharp little boy." The lake house appeared exactly as I remembered it, but something had changed. Flowers bloomed in the beds, the gate was freshly painted, new curtains hung in the windows. The place looked lived in and cozy. "See?" Diego said contentedly. "Sierra really looks after the house well." We got out of the car. As I looked around, admiring the swept paths and trimmed grass, I heard a child's laughter from the garden. I rounded the house and came to the gazebo near the small pond, and what I saw made me freeze. In the gazebo sat an elderly woman in a light dress. On her lap sat a toddler with dark curls, and she was pointing at the ducks swimming in the pond. The child laughed, clapping his hands. I felt the ground slip from under my feet. I knew this woman. I would know her among thousands. "Mama?" The word came out hoarse, barely audible. The woman raised her head and looked at me. The face was painfully familiar, the same brown eyes, the same elegant nose, the same thin lips. But there was no recognition in those eyes, only mild curiosity. "What?" Beatrix tilted her head. "Do we know each other?" I took a step forward, my legs giving way, my heart pounding wildly. "Mama, it's me, Althea, your daughter." She looked at me closely, as if trying to remember, then slowly shook her head. "Forgive me, but I don't know you." "You must be mistaken, ma'am." At that moment, Sierra came out of the house carrying a pot. Seeing me, she smiled. "Oh, you're back. Welcome home. Will you have lunch with us?" "I just made soup." "Sierra," I pointed at my mother with a trembling hand. "This woman, how is she here?" Mrs. B." Sierra looked at the elderly woman with tenderness. "She's been living with us for many months now." "Why?" The baby on Beatrix's lap waved at me. "Sierra," I walked closer, my voice trembling. "This is my mother. Beatrix Vale. This is my mother." Sierra froze, the pot nearly falling from her hands. "This is your mom?" My God, I didn't know. She walked out of the house and disappeared 6 months ago. I spoke incoherently, tears already rolling down my cheeks. Police searched, private detectives searched. No one could find her. I was so worried, thought I lost her forever. Sierra sank onto the bench as if her legs wouldn't hold her. Okay, sit down. I'll tell you everything. Dear, can you play with Liam a little longer? Of course, Beatrix smiled at the baby. We will feed the ducks, yes, sunshine? I sat opposite Sierra, my hands shaking. Tell me everything from the beginning. It was a few days after you gave us the keys, Sierra began. Liam and I went for a walk to the river. There's a beautiful spot not far from here, and suddenly I saw this woman standing by the bridge in the middle of the road. She looked so lost and scared. I went up and asked if she needed help. She looked at me with such lost eyes and asked, "Where is the house?" "I'm looking for the house." "Where exactly?" I interrupted. "By the bridge." She named this street, this house number. I was shocked. I said, "Well, I live in this house." "Come on, I'll walk you." We brought her here and she started crying. She walked into the house, looked around, and burst into tears. She said, "I know this place. I was here. We were here with Lancaster." "Lancaster," I said quietly. "That's my father. He died when I was 25, 30 years ago." "I see," Sierra nodded. "She lives in the past. She remembers her husband, remembers her youth, but everything that happened after his death she doesn't remember." I looked at my mother cheerfully talking to the toddler. "Not at all?" I tried to ask her about family, about home. She described the apartment where she lived with her husband, described her work, she was a teacher, right? But about you, about having a daughter, nothing. As if it didn't happen. "We need to show her to a doctor," I wiped my tears. "This is memory loss, maybe trauma. Maybe she fell, hit her head." "I took her to a doctor," Sierra said. "A week after I found her, to the local general practitioner. He said tests and scans were needed, but Beatrix refused. She was afraid of hospitals. I couldn't force her." "It's okay. I'll find a good doctor. We'll do all tests and scans, find out what happened to her." We sat in silence. I couldn't tear my gaze away from my mother. She held Liam and showed him how to throw breadcrumbs to the ducks. The baby laughed, and she smiled with such a soft, happy expression. "So all this time she's been living here with you?" I finally asked. "Yes," Sierra nodded. "I couldn't leave her alone. You understand?" She was so lost, so helpless. I decided I would stay with her until someone from her family was found. "I didn't know it was your mother. How did you live?" "On what?" "I found a job at the store in the village. The owner allowed me to bring Liam with me. The pay isn't big, but it was enough. Beatrix helped around the house, cooked, cleaned. She cooks beautifully, by the way. And she watched Liam when I was at work. He got so attached to her, calls her Grandma." "Grandma," I repeated, and a new wave of tears rose. She doesn't remember her own daughter but cares for a stranger's child. "Althea," Sierra leaned forward. "I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. If I'd known it was your mother, I would have contacted you immediately." "You're not guilty," I shook my head. "You saved her. You gave her shelter, cared for her." "Sierra, thank you. Thank you so much for not abandoning my mom, for looking after her all these months." Tears appeared in Sierra's eyes too. "You sheltered me and Liam when we were left with absolutely nothing. You didn't even know us, but you helped. I simply couldn't abandon an elderly woman who needed help." We hugged, both crying from relief, from happiness, from everything we'd experienced. "Sierra," I pulled back. "This isn't my business, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but how did you end up on the street with a child?" She wiped her tears and took a deep breath. "I was married to a wealthy man, Raymond. We met when I was working at his company. He was charming, generous, courted beautifully. I fell in love. The wedding was lavish. He bought me a condo, a car, clothes. I thought it was love. But after Liam was born, everything changed. He started getting jealous of the baby, said I was giving him too much attention. And then he started hitting me. God, I whispered. At first rarely, then more and more often. He controlled my every step. I couldn't leave the house without his permission, couldn't call friends. My parents died and my brother lives overseas. I was all alone. I was afraid he would kill me or worse, do something to Liam. I saved money little by little, hid it, saved for 6 months. When I had enough for a bus ticket, I ran. Just took Liam and left while Raymond was at work. Went to the station and got on the first bus leaving. Didn't even know where it was going. And then I met you. Is he looking for you? I asked. I don't know, probably. The store owner hired me off the books, so Raymond couldn't find me through databases. Sierra, I looked her in the eyes. I want to offer you a job in my company, on normal terms with official registration and a good salary. You said you worked as an accountant, right? Yes, but... No buts. You saved my mother, cared for her when I didn't even know where she was. I'm the one who should be grateful. And I want to take you all home, Mama, you, Liam. I have a big house with enough room for everyone. Liam will be better off in the city with more opportunities, good doctors, daycare. Althea, Sierra looked at me with amazement. That's too much. You've already done so much for us. It isn't too much. It's right, I said firmly. Mama will be with me. You'll work. We'll hire a nanny for Liam. When he gets older, preschool. Everyone will be busy, all together, like a family. Like a family, Sierra repeated, tears flowing down her cheeks. I've dreamed of a real family for so long. We had lunch together at the big table in the gazebo. Beatrix told stories about her youth, about how she met Lancaster, how they drove down south for their honeymoon. She spoke vividly with a smile, and it seemed she'd truly returned to that happy time. I listened and cried, trying to do it unnoticeably. My mother was alive, was nearby, but at the same time she wasn't. The woman sitting opposite didn't remember me, didn't recognize me. It was happiness and tragedy simultaneously. The next day, I summoned the city's best neurologist to the lakehouse. After conducting exams and ordering tests, he told me privately, judging by the symptoms, your mother suffered a mini-stroke. It happened most likely at the moment of disappearance or shortly before. A mini-stroke can proceed almost without symptoms, the person doesn't always even understand what happened, but the consequences can be serious. In your mother's case, the areas of the brain responsible for long-term memory were affected. So she'll never remember me? My voice trembled. I can't say for sure. The brain is complex. Sometimes memory is restored partially or completely, sometimes not. It takes time, rehabilitation, support of loved ones. I'll prescribe treatment and most importantly, surround her with familiar things, photographs, stories. This can help. A week later, we moved to the city house. I gave Sierra and Liam a separate suite on the second floor and hired a nanny for Liam. I processed Sierra into the company as an accountant, and she turned out to be excellent, attentive, responsible, a fast learner. Liam stayed home with the nanny and Beatrix while Sierra worked. The elderly woman grew attached to the boy and cared for him with such tenderness that the nanny often joked, I have nothing to do here. Mrs. Beatrix does everything herself. Gradually, very slowly, memory began to return. First, Beatrix remembered her friend Elizabeth, then the address of the house where she lived with her daughter. Then me. It happened 3 months after the move. I came home from work, and my mother met me at the threshold with a smile. Althea, my daughter, she said simply. How I missed you. We hugged, both crying from happiness. Beatrix didn't remember all the details of the last 30 years, but she remembered the main thing, that she had a daughter whom she loved. Now we all live together in the big house. Sierra works and has gained confidence in herself. Liam is growing into a healthy, happy boy. Beatrix is recovering and remembers something new every day. For the first time in many years, I have a real family, not one dictated by obligations and duty, but one created by love and mutual support. Looking back, I realize that sometimes the most impulsive decisions lead to the most beautiful outcomes. That day at the airport, when I gave my keys to a stranger, I had no idea I was setting in motion a chain of events that would bring my mother back to me and give me the family I'd always longed for. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more incredible true stories. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment with your city and the time right now. Your support means the world to me, and I share new stories every single day. Thank you for listening.